Unless you wanna bet that I can get you back inside your head before the summer ends and spread a little love. Just for a little fun, I'll make you come back to me before the rise of every sun. Baby, it's meant to be, I know you got a man, but he don't understand. You're gonna be a heartbreaker. You're such a love taker. So just suck me in and you can toss me like a cigarette. 'Cause I just wanna be a bad habit, yeah.
Welcome to Inside the Numbers with the People's Pundit, and now here's your host, Rich Barris.
Hey folks, welcome to Inside the Numbers with the People's Pundit. I'm your host, Rich Barris. It's Friday, so get your Q&A in, all right? Still dealing with a little bit of a sick kid over here who got me sick, little petri dishes that they are, right? Got a little sore throat over here that I'm powering through because like Sassenach over here is making me this tea, which actually really worked. And I couldn't even speak before. And whatever the hell is in that tea, now I can have a cup of coffee. All right. Because there are a lot of things that I want to go over today. I think as clearly I told you was going on before all of these slew of new polling came out. I could see it because we did something privately for somebody, but also, hold on one second, folks, before she kills herself. Thank you. Thank you very much. Because a project we had done privately, I could see it happening. There was a period after the midterms. I think some of that media stuff kicked in, the media narrative, the blame Trump media narrative, the MAGA bad candidate narrative, and then also just the disappointment on behalf of Republicans. I don't want to say from losing. They took the House, but they did not perform as they expected to perform. So I think that that basically there was a dip for Trump because everyone had put him in the responsible category. It was all Trump's fault. It's so easy to blame someone else for your own mistakes, especially politicians and media figures. They love to scapegoat people instead of take responsibility for themselves. And that's what I think what we saw was the result of that. I never really believed that this early with against anyone who is not as well known, because polling this early, a lot of it is name recognition, but when you have a former president who is still very highly regarded in the party, and has seen the way that Trump is seen, at least in early polling, it's going to be very difficult unless you're polling only high interest voters who know everything about the political world. It's going to be very difficult for that person, that figure, to be trailing. All right. Now, same could be said of like if Barack Obama could have ran again. Maybe he would have been polling ahead early, but at the end of the day, somebody new maybe would have overtaken him. This is a little bit different. And without a doubt, despite comments and columns from the Washington Post folks, what I saw in our own private work is that nobody is going to beat him until they do something about this monstrous lead, that he has among non-college educated voters. And you can poll and poll and poll. And I'm telling you, folks, the first person who's going to take your damn survey, if you're the Fox poll, if you conduct polling like that, which is not good, if you do, you will get educated voters ahead of anybody else. And yet still, look at the picture that was painted in the Fox poll. Very small sample, only of registered voters and only live caller. So again, I think it's very clear. My point I'm coming about, and we're going to go over it. And a bird's eye view of where some of these pollsters were before, where are they now? Regardless of these differences in polling methodologies that can explain, some of the variations in these results, the fact is, no matter who you are, comparing apples to apples, there's very clearly a bump for Donald Trump. All right. We're going to get into why that may be. But that this is very clear that this has happened. My number one question this cycle, I'll tell you what it was in 2016. My number one question in 2016 was whether or not Republican voters were going to stop allowing Fox News and the talking heads to pick their nominee. We were polling and we saw something totally different. They would come out with a Fox poll and it would say that Donald Trump is down to Clinton by 6, 8, 10 points. Meanwhile, maybe Ted Cruz was neck and neck and Marco Rubio neck and neck and Jeb Bush had a 2-point lead. We didn't see that anywhere because of who we believed would vote or could vote. And ultimately, the voters didn't listen to them. They picked Donald Trump. And looking back, hindsight's always 20/20. He was the only one who could have beaten Hillary Clinton. Nobody was going to break the blue wall in the Rust Belt. Anyone who has an objection to that, I ask a very simple question. Which Rust Belt state, what combination was Ted Cruz going to carry to get to 270? What combination, what Rust Belt states was Marco Rubio going to carry to get to 270? Crickets. You may get some Hail Mary idea. Oh, Romney was only 4 points behind in Pennsylvania and blah, blah, blah. George Bush was actually a pretty good candidate for the state of Wisconsin, and he failed not once, but twice. Why? Because you cannot do that poorly in the progressive labor area in the Northwest in Wisconsin and not just completely crush it in the Northeast, which is not going to happen anymore. So he fell a couple thousand votes shy. It was a very, very close state in 2004 specifically. So was Pennsylvania. But they could not get over that hump. All right, so moving forward, in 2020, it was whether Democrats would be able to do the same. Would they think for themselves and would they pick their own nominee? I think the answer is very clear. No, their heart was with Bernie Sanders, but between the media and Barack Obama behind the scenes, they installed Joe Biden. Tragedy. Whether you're a Democrat or you're not, you should want your fellow Americans to be making a choice that is representative for themselves and their values and who they are. You don't want corporate media, corporate entities, foreign entities installing presidents in your own country. It doesn't matter what party you're from. Am I wrong? All right. Now, in 2024, the question is simple. I've been looking at all these non-Trump cycles with a magnifying glass, a microscope, actually, and looking back on the polling from that was done this past year, and it's very clear. The ingredients for a historic win for Republicans, they were all there. They were all on the table. All you had to do was bake the cake. They couldn't do it. And one of the major reasons they couldn't do it is because they cannot get out this Trump voter. Some of them even were Obama-only voters. Some of them were, I haven't voted in a long time, but I voted for Donald Trump twice and didn't vote for anybody else. Some of them were a little bit of a mixture of both. Some of them were new, even though maybe they had been around for a while. Some of them are young and non-white. It makes a little difference in rural areas of each state. And it can make an enormous difference in some of these urban areas, which I think it's Jim on my locals. And I just want to give you the kudos, Jim, because I see you doing your own work and posting it to the locals community. You know what I'm talking about. You're on it. I can see you're dialing in every single area that we have been looking at. Areas where you would never think, oh my God, that could be the difference in a state like Pennsylvania. Or, oh my God, that could be the difference in a state like Wisconsin. Or that could be the difference in some state you may not even think could go. Crazy, crazy examples. And Republicans, I am highly, highly skeptical that they can put up anyone who could do this and hold on to their other voters. All right, so can they? That's my main question. Can they do this? Is there anyone else who can do this? Which is why, and I hope I get to it today because I do want to get to a lot of Q&As, but it's why I'm asking some of the questions in the poll that we're doing. I think that it's very clear. You look at the analysis, even in the Washington Post, who drew the wrong conclusion. There are people who may vote, who may say they're going to vote for another Republican candidate, but if that candidate loses, they will still vote for the former president. However, there is a large chunk of voters who say, I'm voting for the former president, and if he doesn't get the nomination, I'm not going to vote. Now, you'll have some anti-Trump people who will counter that, and they'll say, well, you know, Trump brings out all these people who probably wouldn't vote, but they hate him so much. That's nonsense, folks. Look at what happened in the midterm. Believe me, those mail-in ballots are coming in. Doesn't matter who the candidate is. We're talking about bucks here. We're talking about power here. They're in the I don't even want to call it the era, the post-COVID era. They have an infrastructure, and believe you me, they're going to put it to work. So somebody, yes, we will be on Untold Stories today, Sue. Absolutely. Later on, 5:30, I will be on with Eric Hundley. I'm looking forward to it, and I haven't seen my buddy Eric in a long time. The elections come around, I get swamped, taken away, and, I haven't talked to Eric in a while. And Eric's one of the good ones, I got to tell you. If you don't check out his YouTube channel and his Rumble channels, Unstructured, and they also do the Behavior Panel. He's got fantastic content. All right. And truth be told, I miss hanging out with Eric a little bit. So I'm very much looking forward to it tonight. I'm going to take a bunch of, vitamins and whatnot to power me and get me through. Oh, I forgot my regimen. All right. So I see a lot of questions rolling in, and we're going to get to them. First and foremost, though, I also want to get to a couple other things you see in the description. I want to talk about the latest in the tragic, battle for Bakhmut. It's the predictable but tragic scenario that's going on there. I also want to talk about some of the latest attacks by media, which on pollsters, which I'm going to start right now, and we'll get to your Q&A. Let's start with that. All right. So let me just make sure first and foremost, there's nothing. All right. So I did ask. Let me see if they got it for me. I did ask them to. Nope, it's not there yet. All right. I did ask them to send me the actual article in full, but since we don't, let's just watch what they did, and then I'm going to read something from back in the day. All right, and it's important. It's not. You may not even ever seen it, but it goes to the argument I'm about to make. So Rasmussen asked a question the other day, which got corporate media in a tizzy, which is, do you believe that the federal government, federal agents, entities had basically pushed, and here, let me read the wording of the question to you because they attacked the wording specifically. Do you believe that the government had anything to do with January 6th is basically what they're trying to get at. All right. Media's bias getting worse. And the headline is 61% believe the feds helped incite the Capitol riot. All right. And if we get to the wording of the question, it says a special committee investigated the January 6, 2021 riot. They even used the term riot at the U.S. Capitol. How would you rate the job done by this committee? And then the second question is, Tucker Carlson is reportedly planning to broadcast videos of the Capitol riot that were not previously released by the Congressional Committee. How important is it that the public be able to view all the videos of the Capitol riot? And the third question, which really sent their in a bunch, how likely is it that undercover government agents helped provoke the Capitol riot? Well, they can't stand that. So the AP goes after a public pollster. I told you this was going to start happening. Did I not tell you that everyone will soon be treated like me if they don't like you? Right? Hold on. Somebody I know says they put you in like the conservative ghetto, right? And it's a great way that he explained that, that he used that term, right? Anyway, Rasmussen fires back, and they say, the wacky tacky AP. Rasmussen Reports is a conservative polling firm that has used its Twitter account to endorse false and misleading claims about COVID-19 vaccines, elections, and the January 6, 2021 attack on the U.S. Capitol. And then they just write that. They have that in quotes, and then they just write, beautiful. And here it is. The Anti-Defamation League said the phrase at the center of the question was popularized as a trolling campaign by members of 4chan, a notoriously anonymous message board, and was adopted by some white supremacists. Rasmussen Reports is a conservative polling firm, and they go on to say what they say. So at the center of the question is what? What are they talking about? Unbelievably, they also had a canary over the national divorce thing. All right. First and foremost, I know everybody at Rasmussen Reports. They are not, every person has, whether you're a pundit, a pollster, Everyone has their own political opinions. They have their own views. To pretend, because I'm telling you, I know, and I know for a fact, not everyone at Rasmussen Reports is conservative or would be considered Republican. That is false. They are not. They are essentially a bipartisan company. Laura, while it's true that I would say no, it's not fair to say. Never mind. I'm not even going to give the AP that. People who decide the headlines that are getting, listen, okay. People, how Rasmussen works is they look at the news and they decide what to add to their tracker poll, right? And they try to stay relevant with what's going on in the news and then poll people based on what is going on. It's a nice little system. But the pollster does not decide what questions go in the poll. That's somebody totally different. And those two don't get to decide how the column is worded when it's released. Everyone has a lane and they stay in their lanes. It's a bipartisan operation. It is not a conservative polling firm. That is not accurate, nor is it fair to say. But they'll do this when they think that they need to smear somebody. A while ago, before we move on, I just want to write this because this is not the first time they've done this to Rasmussen, but it is the first time, folks, that they said things like white supremacists, right? And I wound up writing a column, which I'm going to show you right now. All right, and then we'll go back to what Rasmussen said about them. I'm going to write. I wrote a column. It actually did get picked up by Rasmussen and a couple other people, and it was on People's Pundit Daily originally. All right, but anyway, the bottom line is they had accused them of being Republican leaning, and my point was, if Rasmussen Reports is Republican leaning, then what the hell does that make everyone else? Democrat, overwhelmingly Democrat, and then we go through. You know, that, of course, by the way, for those who don't know, Dewey defeats Truman. And you have Harry Truman holding up the Chicago Daily Tribune. They already had the headline printed because the polls, mainly Gallup, this was the gold standard. It was one of Gallup's only big screw-ups ever. It's not a bad record, all right? But Dewey was ahead of Truman by like about 5 points. He had been leading Truman by a lot, but Truman never had a lead. And it always looked like Truman was going to go down. And they already started printing up the headlines. All right. So this was a mistake, but it was one of Gallup's only mistakes. I go on to basically give a litany of all sorts of absolutely horrible results by these same people who are at the time calling Rasmussen Republican leaning. All right. And by the way, I had to I'm going to give you the backstory here because I think it's important. How much collaboration is involved in the smear, I'm going to tell you. So anyway, we go on to say, what the hell does that make you? Including the AP, who had Hillary Clinton beating Donald Trump in their final poll. Are you ready, ladies and gentlemen? 14 points. The AP is one of the notoriously inaccurate major media polls. They are a horrible poll with a horrible record. Joe Biden, if I remember correctly, in 2020, their final 2020 was Biden plus 12 or something. Somewhere in that ballpark, I may be on the money. I may be right on the money. But their final in 2016, Hillary plus 14. And we're not talking about their final in like early October. This was the final week of October, released right before the election. So what the hell does that make the AP? Which is the point Rasmussen tries to make. But I also used something that's, in the top 10 pollsters that were aggregated by RCP in 2016. If you use the measure of accuracy that was proposed by Elizabeth Martin from the U.S. Census Bureau, Michael Traggett from the University of Michigan, and Courtney Kennedy from the University of Michigan, which is published in the Public Opinion Quarterly to rank pollster accuracy, always, then Rasmussen Reports was the most accurate pollster when they were getting the smear. I'm talking about national pollster. All right. Public Opinion Quarterly is funded by APOR, the American Association of Public Opinion Research. But because this article got so much traction and people were just mocking all of they basically turned the tables on the people who attacked Rasmussen. APOR contacted me and they wanted me to change how I worded this to make sure it wasn't saying that APOR's method believes that Rasmussen was the most accurate in 2016. Even though this is a journal that is funded by APOR, it has been considered APOR's quarterly journal. This is the method they had been using, they have been touting, and yet they wanted me to correct it. And this is the best we could come up with. An earlier version of this article was worded in a way that it could be construed APOR releases a rank of pollsters. Of course, the original version did not say that. They just didn't want it at all to be able to be implied, insinuated, whatever. The method above was proposed as a measure to rank pollsters. We asked APOR for clarification, and the above reflects that in the last sentence, rather than to the American Association for Public Opinion Research to rank accuracy. It now states, published in Public Opinion Quarterly to rank accuracy. Public Opinion Quarterly is an academic journal published by Oxford University Press for the American Association of Public Opinion Research. This is how much thought goes into the smear, that they think they have to change these, make these tiny little tweaks. Anyway, you'll notice the AP isn't even on here because the AP was so bad that year, it was not even close to the top 10. I mean, I wouldn't even bother doing the math. That's how bad the AP performed in 2016. They performed almost equally as bad in 2020. They got maybe 2 points better. Anyway, why aren't those who perform more poorly than Rasmussen referred to as Democrat-leaning pollsters? How about less accurate-leaning pollsters? Anyway, this represents a new level for sure for the AP and media to attack a pollster, and it's worth noting. They go on to say a conservative polling firm that mysteriously has been party-weighted Democratic for both likely voters and all adults for well over a decade. And unlike AP, we make it a habit of being accurate and showing up when it counts, unlike polling cowards. That's the point that Rasmussen's trying to make. You may not like the questions that they're asking, which get into some of the topics, but there has been talk about whether the feds were involved in January 6th. There has been a huge national conversation about national divorce. We polled it. We polled both these things, by the way. There was a conversation about adverse effects they didn't want you to have. We polled it. Rasmussen was a little late to the party on that one, but at least they got there. Where's the AP? And if you're considering these things, then are you, some kind of lack of credit? Do you have some kind of lack of credibility because you asked about Russia collusion all through the Trump administration? That was a hoax. How many times have you polled based on a race hoax? Tawana Brawley, Michael Brown. How many times have you polled that? How many times have big media outlets polled questions like this? A ton of times. Let's get real. They're so full of crap, it's not even funny. All right, and if you click on some of these, you'll see. All right, Bloomberg, IDB tracking. All right, Clinton +2, Clinton +2. Average pollster era in the U.S. presidential race. They're just showing you how close they were to the top. By the way, is the AP even on that, even for the schmuck? Where's the AP? Where's the Associated Press? I can't seem to find it anywhere. I'm even looking for the panel that does the Associated Press. I can't find it. Whew, that's funny. That's funny considering the USC poll was particularly bad too. But you have to release that before. I get what they're saying, but you have to release that before. All right. And here's 2020's generic congressional vote. All right. So, I mean, obviously very, 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 very close. We were a point closer. I'm just saying. But it's very, very defendable. We even had a 4.7 rounded up to 5 before, right? something like that. I'd have to go back and check, but it would have been rounded up to a 5. False and misleading claims about the COVID-19 vaccines. Our polling indicates the CDC is lying when it comes to vaccine side effects, they say. And do we have to go over our own? All right. False and misleading claims about elections. We'll just let you read that one. False and misleading claims about the January 6th. And they even use, folks, they use the term riot. Let me explain something to you. Using the term riot is injecting bias. It is. The event is really, I mean, if you were in a college and they were going over this, how can I put this? They would probably want you to look for a neutral word. All right, because the term riot is, I'd have to go back and look how we said it, but I think we just used the term protest, and we said, did you believe that it was a riot, an insurrection, a protest? You know, we did things like, and then we would have said, like, do you think that the federal government had anything to do with it or was involved in it? But again, they used the term riot, which should have made the AP happy. So I don't understand why they have some problems with some of this. I love this one, they say. Tomorrow, you'll be shown to be corrupt liars yet again, AP, which what they did very simply was poll yesterday. Well, they didn't poll yesterday. They released it yesterday that showed what the results of the survey were. All right, because the fact of the matter is a huge percentage of the American public does believe that. Just like we were talking about with the national divorce, which flipped out the media too. A huge percentage of the public is very, very concerned about a second civil war. They're very concerned about it. Even more concerning is how many people are concerned that it's likely or very likely will happen, and then they just don't care. They want to bang out and get it over with. You can't ignore stuff like this and just smear people. I mean, I guess you can, but my point is, this is just going to make the problem worse. What the AP is doing right here is behavior that has led to the current environment we are in now. You hate Donald Trump? You made Donald Trump. You created the need for Donald Trump. You did it. You handicapped the whole system. Speaking of which, well, I don't want to jump ahead of myself here. They give crap the other day to Ron DeSantis' team, and we're going to talk about DeSantis here in a bit, but they give crap to Ron DeSantis the other day about not being able to get into his events, not being able to cover some of his stuff. Did they let us in, Laura? Did they let other people who are not considered friendly media into their events? No. Did Barack Obama or Joe Biden this time put anybody on the list that they don't feel is their media, their friendly, not adversarial media? No. The first time all of these new up-and-coming outlets were able to get a White House press briefing, right? Invitations to White House events was under Donald Trump. And if you couldn't do it, he would give you remote access. And then you could ask questions remotely at a press conference if you were selected for it. And he wasn't rigorous at all. My point is, they can't have a dose of their own medicine at all. They can't tolerate it. Ron keeps them out and they just have a meltdown over it. They ask a bunch of questions about things that don't exist, things that never happened, conspiracy theories that they never say they're sorry for promoting. And it's not a problem. Rasmussen Reports asks about things that actually people are concerned about, and they're now white folks. They threw the term white supremacist. This is being pushed by white supremacists. What is the insinuation? I just showed you how far they're willing to go to try to get you to make a correction to something so readers and viewers and consumers don't make insinuations or draw their own conclusions that they don't want them to draw. Look at how detailed they wanted me to change that wording, and ultimately I wouldn't do it. I did it. I met them halfway, and then I said the ridiculousness of all of this is that, of course, APOR publishes this journal or sponsors the publishing. That is their journal. They don't want you making those insinuations. What kind of insinuations do you think they want you to draw when they put Rasmussen Reports in the same paragraph as a statement that says this language comes from white supremacists on 4chan? Well, of course, they want you to draw the conclusion. They want you to make the connection that Rasmussen Reports is filled with white supremacists. And by the way, they're Republicans. They're conservative leaning. I wonder how the Democrat at Rasmussen feels about this. There's a Republican, a Democrat, and a non-affiliated worker. That's like their top three. It's just simply not true. Unbelievable. Unbelievable. If something happens to Rasmussen Reports, it's the AP's fault. They are brick and mortar in a blue area. If something happens to them, it's on the AP. Disgrace. Effing disgrace. Really is. But that's where this stuff is going. That is indeed where this stuff is going. All right. Let's see real quick. No, I'm not going to do that. We'll take a break in between. We'll take a break closer to the top of the hour. And I do actually want to get a little bit into oh, you guys want to see the results of that? Let's show the results of that. Hold on. Let me grab that and show you guys the results. I should have done that. Duh. Uh-oh. What's going on here? Huh. That's weird. Did I not copy the entire... Uh-oh. It could be gone. Okay, so the asset could be gone. So let's stop that screen share. Yep, and do another one. I pulled it up ahead of time. It looks like it's been taken down. Maybe Rasmussen just changed the link, but right now it's up and it's live. So if I close the browser out, it will disappear. All right, let's do this. You can't see that. The hell am I talking about? Poor little kid. It sucks when your kids are sick. There's nothing you do about it, and it's really it blows. It just blows, you know. Even though you're, you know, adults can deal with it. Adults can deal with it. Kids, like, they don't know what's wrong with them, you know, and it's just sad. They don't know what's wrong with them. They don't know what to do. You know what I mean? Oh, hey, Laura, during the commercial break, can I have my laptop? I think I left it in your area. I think I did. Whoops. Whoops. I'll need that. All right. So bottom line is here, I know it's kind of small, but you can see that this is the AP really can't stand. They don't want to have this conversation at all because the truth is Americans do share the concerns of people that they don't want Americans to think this. All right. It's the bottom line. A special congressional committee investigated January 6, 2021, a riot in the U.S. Capitol. How would you rate the job that was done? Obviously, the job that was done, they do not rate very well at all, although that they are pretty split on this. They're still slightly negative. Tucker Carlson has the broadcast videos. How important is it that the public is able to view all of it? 58, that's an 8, right? Man, so yeah, 58% say it's very important. Another 22 say it is somewhat important. By the way, look at party. Even half the Democrats say it's very important. Another almost third say somewhat important. Yes, Republicans are more likely to say very important, but how likely is it that undercover government agents help provoke the Capitol riot? Obviously, Democrats are going to be less than Republicans here. But on very likely, roughly 4 in 10 Americans say it's very likely. Another slightly more than 1 in 5, a little less than 1 in 4 say that it's somewhat likely. So you're talking about, folks, 61% say it's at least somewhat likely the feds agitated this situation. We're going to start talking a lot more, which is definitely going to brand me a friend. We're going to talk a lot more about whether we need any of these agencies. Have you ever studied the history of the FBI? Have you ever studied the history of the CIA and their activities in Central and South America, the drug war, what they did during the Cold War? Like, I just don't think we need these people. I don't think we need these people. Change your foreign policy so it ain't crappy Have it be an America-centered foreign policy, American interest-centered foreign policy. Ladies and gentlemen, you don't need all this crap. This is at, no, I'm not muted. I'm just reading something. We got some really good questions today. Wow. That means, frankly, I'd like to, well, maybe we'll get to Bakhmut after this real quick announcement. We'll get to Bakhmut, and then we'll talk about, we'll get to your questions, because they're elaborate, they're thoughtful, and we got to talk about it. All right. And then I think we can even get into the DeSantis news when we do some of the questions based on what I'm reading. Why is China hoarding food? Experts say that China is hoarding a massive amount of food. They will soon have over 2/3 of the globe's corn reserves, over half of its rice, and over half of its wheat. But when asked about it, China lies. One China expert says, quote, they, of course, will never admit to something like that, unquote. Well, what does China know that we don't know? When it comes to global food shortages, China is the, quote, canary in the coal mine, unquote. You see, China's the world's #1 food importer. They rely on the rest of the world to keep their people fed, so they can't afford to mess up, or there'll be riots, civil panic, or even worse, when over 1 billion people can't eat. That's why it's a smart idea to stock up on the kit of the best-selling 4 Patriots Survival Food Kit. What does this mean for Americans like you and me? 2 words: food shortages. Create your own stockpile like Laura and I have done for our family of the best-selling 4 Patriots Survival Food Kits. They're hand-packed right in the USA. The kits are compact and they stack easily. They have different delicious breakfasts, lunches, and dinners, and their 5-star reviews, including from many of you on their website, rave about the flavor and the taste. I told you they were delicious. Right now, you can get 10% off your first purchase of 4 Patriots Survival Food or any of their products by typing in the code TPP10. That's TPP10 right there on your screen for the People's Pundit at checkout. Just go to 4patriots.com and use the code TPP10 to get 10% off your first purchase of 4 Patriots Survival Food. They also have a lot of other great products that you will find useful. I know I did. Solar water boiling, all sorts of very handy, essential, I will say essential things. That's 4patriots.com. Use the code TPP10. And if you get that 3-month survival kit, ladies and gentlemen, check out what you get for the free gifts that they always have in their deals, because like I've told you before, they're all always very useful, and you may wind up buying something that actually comes in it. You know how a lot of times people give you stuff that's like, oh, it's 10 free gifts and they're useless. That is not the case with 4 Patriots. Everything you get will be something that you will find incredibly useful. One more time, 4 patriots.com, promo code TPP10 at checkout. All right. You know what? Let's do one more real quick, and then let's get into your questions. All right. Yep. Let's do that. Also, by the way, leave your reviews. We love to see your reviews. We love to hear from you with all of our sponsors. You guys always send us great feedback, and of course, we want that feedback. So do it. All right. Just like we did with some of the other stuff that we checked out before we got to this next one. All right. Junk science. That's what your doctor will tell you about many of these other fruit and vegetable supplements. Junk science because they use extracts of common produce department fruits and vegetables that you could just get from your own grocery store with few health benefits. We take Field of Greens because of its whole organic fruit and vegetable, not a watered down supplement, and it's backed by a better health promise. Each ingredient in Field of Greens was chosen to support vital organs like your heart, lungs, kidney health. Others support our immune system, blood pressure, metabolism, and healthy weight loss. I don't eat as healthy as I should, though we tried. Lord knows, Laura and I try. That's why I take Field of Greens. Like me, you're going to probably feel and look healthier fast and have way more energy. But your best proof will come at your next checkup, like I always say, when your doctor says, whatever you're doing, it's working, keep it up. Let me get you started with 15% off. Go to fieldofgreens.com and use the promo code TPP. No 10, just TPP. That's promo code TPP at fieldofgreens.com. And of course, as always, let us know what you think. All right. All right. Let's try to get into some of let's do Bakhmut really quickly. I was going to show videos. I'm not going to show videos because I don't want to get in trouble with some of them. You know how it is. Because I don't want, I don't want this to be blocked from you guys. But I will say this: you had all of the media, the Western media, talking about Bakhmut and how glorious the Ukrainians were doing. The truth is, from what I hear, basically out of ammunition, very low on ammunition. These are very young people. I've seen the footage. I just think it's disgusting, frankly. I really do. I don't like war anymore. When I was young, I think it's even fair to say that I kind of loved it. But I don't know if it's fair to say that. You get older, things change, you get more mature. And then also, too, you realize that some of this stuff, how futile some of this stuff is in U.S. foreign policy. I just mentioned one before, drug war. I mean, it's totally futile. And then this idea of expansion, never-ending over-expansion, not only is it futile, but it's actually dangerous. Anyway, we pushed the Ukrainians to do this. We're also trying to push them to mount offensives, similar offensives in Crimea and the Donbass. This is a hold situation in Bakhmut, and they have been the Ukrainians are being slaughtered, and the Russian line is still huge. They went from shelling, they shelled and shelled and shelled. That's what Russians do. They pulverize until the wave after wave of infantrymen comes in. And I was watching one video before from one kid. He's basically like, I'm stuck in a hole. I can't pick my head up. If I do, I'll get hit with that sniper over there. I have 3 magazines left. That's it. We're out of basically food. We're out of ammunition. And we just blew up the last supply line, the last supply route in an effort to keep the Russians out. The only way that the Ukrainians could retreat is through soft ground, which is basically like a bog, which could end up being an absolute slaughter. So it was predictable. It's tragic, man. It's so effing tragic. And if they can't hold Bakhmut, do you think they're going to be able to launch an offensive in the Crimea? Even with, and you can see all their equipment, modern equipment, the U.S. has equipped them well. The fact is, though, Russia is a great power. Ukraine is not. Even though they're backed by other great powers, this is, for the most part, conventional warfare. Russia has a load of resources that they could still tap, and Ukraine has NATO supplies. At some point, Ukraine is going to need bodies, okay? And that's why we're following this story as closely as we are. Number one, because I've told you, normally when I express an opinion on this show, I'm trying to express the opinion of the majority that we see in the polling. Right? Especially when it goes against what the media and the ruling class are trying to do. Trying to speak for those people because the media does not, because the ruling class does not. All right. When it comes to war, I have a hard time being impartial. All right. As many of you, I'm sure, probably understand why. But also, it's even an added plus when that view is in line with the views of the American public. There is no chance in hell that the American public is going to support bodies in Ukraine. So this inevitable, and Germany, by the way, I don't know if you saw the news yesterday, but Germany refuses to help the way that they initially committed that they would. They are not rearming. They are not remilitarizing, even though Trump pushed them to do it. And now Biden's kind of giving them a little bit of a backdoor way to do it. They're just not. Germany, why does that matter? Because the French are weak. Because everyone else in NATO is weak. Even the United Kingdom, I'm sorry if you're from the United Kingdom, you are not the power you used to be. They're weak. Germany is the only nation that has the industrialized base, the population, the economy, what it takes to become a great power. They really are. I don't know that the United Kingdom even has the ability to do that anymore. Now, the Germans may not have the stomach to do it, but they have the potential latent economic power to do it. And they just refuse to do it. So what in the hell is the end game here? The Polish president won't even fly his F-16s over the battlefield. What's the end game here? If Poland doesn't feel threatened, why should we be doing this? When the public doesn't support it. They're very loud, vocal minority on social media, but they are not anywhere near a majority. People who are like, fight Putin at all costs. Those are Russia-phobes out there. And they're being, thanks to the media, courtesy, by the way, of the AP and others. They are not the majority. So what exactly are we supposed to be doing here? And instead, Bakhmut was a PR stunt. Hold at all costs. It doesn't matter how many people die. Even if they do, even if the Russians do say, because the truth is the Russians may just say, we punish them hard and we're going to go. Putin has done that in this conflict. He just eliminates the bodies. You know, he builds a body count and then he walks away because he may not want to occupy that area. But he did serious damage. And then the Western media and the Ukrainians, they declare a victory or something, as if they haven't been completely decimated. You know what? I'm not. Maybe I'll show one. Maybe I'll show one. Here's one. I don't know. He curses a lot. They could use that as an example. You know, one's saying that, the other one's like a video message to his mother. I can't believe I'm still alive. I don't know if I am going to be still alive, but we're alive, Ma. Some of us are still here, including your son. It's terrible. The kid looks like he's 17 years old. The kid I was just about to show, and actually, I mean, I'll show you his face, but, you know, oops. And you can hear the shells in the background. He's like one of the oldest ones I saw in some of these videos. So you cannot listen to the Western headlines. You have to just, you know, try to decipher it for yourself and then look at the movements. But why are they continuing to do this? And instead of doing that, instead of doing that, I'm going to show you why. All right. Jack did a great job, and I want to highlight his reporting here, because this is it, folks. This is why they continue to do it. As soon as it gets up, we'll talk about it. I mean, because for you and I, it's like, why? This is so futile. But for them, there's something else at play here. Okay? This is from Human Events. Hat tip to Libby Emmons and Jack. Libby's such a nice girl, by the way. Remember Libby, Laura? Such a sweetheart. Such a sweetheart. Yeah, Laura said, I love Libby. Such a sweetheart. And Jack, who we all know has his sources. All right. Doubt him at your own risk. No, I'm serious. Like, this isn't Maggie Haberman, you know, from the New York Times, who just makes, you know, makes up whatever she wants or prints whatever they tell her to print, you know. Hey, look, it's 4 Patriots. That's because we were just on there. Probably see a lot of guitar stuff, in fact, too. Hold on, let's get to read. Let me take a real quick sip of this lemon, and then for my voice, and we'll be able to read. Jack will go over it, but I think we all remember who Alexander Vinman is. Exclusive. Alexander Vinman secretly pitching Ukrainian military for millions in defense contracts. Documents recently obtained by Human Events show that Alexander Vinman has been pitching the government of Ukraine to obtain lucrative defense contracts. By the way, the government of Ukraine, this government, actually offered Vinman the post of what is essentially the Secretary of Defense. All right. In August 2022, Vinman, operating as CEO of Trident Support, pitched a deck on a Ukraine weapon system sustainment center to address problems with Ukraine's weapons management, namely readiness, repair, and maintenance. Vinman proposed that for the low price of $12 million in initial funding, his company, Trident Support, would bring support closer to the front lines by providing a logistical midpoint from which equipment could be distributed. While Vinman is operating a private company here, ladies and gentlemen, if you're Vladimir Putin, does that make you just a little bit closer? Like they blew up Nord Stream 2. They gave tanks. They gave this. They gave that. They got advisors. And now here's a so-called American company trying to provide a jump-off spot for your enemy. How many acts do you need before it's a declaration of war? And there's 4 Patriots again. Don't forget, 4patriots.com. Promo code TPP10. The idea behind the proposal is that Trident support would be a middleman between NATO weapons and Ukrainian forces, teaching the latter how to operate and repair the equipment while taking an exorbitant fee from Ukraine to do it. Well, where is that fee coming from, ladies and gentlemen? You! Ukraine aid packages. So here you have the ruling class in the United States taking from you, giving it to Ukraine, and then putting it in their own pocket. There's a term for that. U.S. and NATO provided equipment. You can see a list of it there. Stryker platform from General Dynamics. The M119 and Hawkeye 105mm BAE. The M2 machine gun. The M113 platform. MK-19 grenade launchers. Riverine assault boats. Night vision devices, thermal sights, SRC Inc. providing the TPQ-49s and 50s, Model 903 direction finder, the Black Talon ADUS EW system from TCI Inc., RQ-20 Puma, that's from AeroVironment, and on and on and on. Nice little scam they got going on here, isn't it? Personnel who would be employed under the plan would be those who were highly experienced former soldiers or contractors in Iraq and or Afghanistan. Maintenance training facility. By the way, look at these PowerPoints they put these things on. Does it look like a $12 million PowerPoint to you? Units will deploy maintenance personnel from the field to attend 2 to 3 week training. Instructors will be highly experienced former soldiers or contractors. Yeah, mercenaries. That's what that term means. Mercenaries. Mercs. They hired mercs. You guys get the point here. The facilities to undertake this mission will be located in Poland, Slovakia, and Romania, were it not possible to make that base in Ukraine. The deck outlining the proposal was revealed along with court documents showing a dispute over payments. Vinman testified before the House in November of 2019 as part of the first impeachment inquiry into then-President Donald Trump. Vinman, who was an officer in the U.S. Army, told the House that disgrace to the U.S. Army, by the way. Like, it makes me ashamed that I ever had that uniform, sharing the same uniform as this prick, who was an officer in the U.S. Army, told the House that he listened to a call between Trump and Ukrainian President Vladimir Zelensky in which Trump asked for clarification and information about the way the firing of a prosecutor was handled during the Obama administration. Do we have to get into this? We all know who Vinman is, all right? Yeah, we get it. All right, so let's get into some of your questions, shall we? Because I really think this says it all. They're killing people in Ukraine for money. They're having people in Ukraine give their lives for money. Not them. They're not getting that money. People like Alexander Vinman want that money. People like Joe Biden's family want that money. Scumbag, ex-CIA, and mercs want that money. Again, do we need these people? Do we really anymore? Is manifest destiny and the Monroe Doctrine still in play? Because that's what this all seems like. I thought it was just this hemisphere. I just, you know, it pisses me off. I have to watch what I say. All right, one of them, DeSantis doesn't add, Trump will carry. Yeah, let's put up this while we talk about this, because I know those questions are coming. And again, that's Jack from Human Events. Great job, Jack. Great work. Great work. Seriously, great work. Where's my NBC article? There it is. There it is. I did. I know I moved it. I know. Come on, bear with me here. Let's bring this up as we talk about these questions. I'm going to try to jump around a little bit, Laura, just because they're all like DeSantis centered. Trump will carry Florida. Well, I mean, Trump's going to carry Florida overwhelmingly Trump will carry Miami-Dade in 2024. I told you he was going to be very close to carrying it in 2020 if he is the nominee in 24. And I think DeSantis would probably carry it too. And I mean, the governor's election is very different, folks. Understand there have been governors before who have won their state overwhelmingly or even won them and then could not win them in a presidential election. In Massachusetts, Mitt Romney was able to carry the governorship in Massachusetts. He was not able to carry it in the presidential election. Now, most Republican nominees are going to carry Florida unless they prove to be a shill. Like back to the, and we're using our phrase here again, screw the poor, start a war party. If we're going to go back to that, they could lose Florida. They could lose Iowa. They will lose Iowa. They could lose Ohio. They have no chance of carrying New Hampshire. They have no chance of carrying Wisconsin. On and on and on. All right, so they have to be careful here. But I do think Nikki Haley, she would lose Florida, I think. I do, Laura. I believe that. I really believe that. Nikki Haley would lose Florida. Mike Pompeo would lose Florida. All right. Mike Pence, be close. Be close. Ron DeSantis and Trump are going to easily win Florida. You'll call it in 30, 40 minutes. By the way, the only reason, you see how long they took to call Florida for Ron DeSantis in 2022? We were once again the first ones to call Florida. It was over. As soon as what were they waiting for? Unbelievable. It took longer for them to call Florida for Ron DeSantis and Marco Rubio, who carried it by nearly 20 points, than it did for some of these races in South Texas that were pretty close. And others. Do you? Yeah. So I do think both, and that's the response to that first one. I really do think both. I also don't put too much stock in VP selections, except for very extreme circumstances. I think that Joe Biden did help Barack Obama, even though a lot of people wouldn't think that. No way, Barack Obama was going to win anyway. But there were some voters in Ohio and Florida, places like that, where an old white man did help. Let's just be real. Now, was it the margin? I don't know. The best case for a VP pick is Lyndon Baines Johnson with JFK in Texas. He might have helped him in Texas. All right, that's the best case historically. It's tough. Anyway, as you can see the headline here, Florida Governor DeSantis set to visit Trump set to visit Iowa, ramping up 2024 moves. DeSantis is going to run. If he's doing this, he's going to run. And I told you this anyway. He was saying one thing publicly. He was saying other things to donors and surrogates from Team McCarthy and Team Ryan for months. You can say all you want. They can deny it all they want. It was true. And notice, by the way, in their denial, they made it out, like I said, it was some spooky meeting between Ryan, McCarthy, and DeSantis in some dark room with cigars and sherry. Like, that's not what I said. And when you make up something to deny, to get around the central claim, then you know a politician is lying. And that is what Ron DeSantis did. He is running. DeSantis has scheduled events on March 10th in the eastern Iowa city of Davenport and the state capital, Des Moines, to promote his new book, The Courage to Be Free. It always is about that. And by the way, there's a lot of question about where DeSantis stands on foreign policy. There's going to be a lot that, oops, I was scrolling down the wrong version of that article. Sorry, guys. There was, God, NBC News is such a pain in the, you know what? It doesn't matter whether it's their Florida affiliate or whatnot. Their website is a pain. Anyway, the bottom line is we don't know where some of these positions stand. A politician can say something now, folks, but his vote record, his comments in the past about Ukraine, his comments about Iraq, if I rattled off some names of people you didn't think were going to turn into neocons, you may be pretty surprised. Peter Meyer first got elected. He's defeated now, but first got elected saying that we need to be America first. I'm running in Michigan 3 because Justin Amash is, not America first. And then he turned out to be a neocon, and he pretended to be on Team Trump and Team MAGA. He turned out to be a neocon. Dan Crenshaw did not run as a neocon. All right. So a lot of these people pretend to be America first and then get in office and change their tone. So, a man who says he's not going to run, if the former president's going to run, who says that, privately to people at dinners and then runs, makes me question whether or not he's telling the truth on some of these other things. The fact is he was what's the word? Pro-Ukraine intervention before. He was pro-intervention in Iraq. He was pro-surge in Iraq. That's just true. Don't get mad at me for saying it. Anyway, so we can leave this up here while we talk about it, because I think that's the end of the story here. But while we talk about this more, do you guys still believe that DeSantis will back Trump, even run on the ticket with him? Or is he for real going to try to run? I'm telling you, he's going to run. The question is whether, if he loses, will he back Trump? Will he even think about consider a VP position if Trump is going to offer it to him? And Laura, what you just sent me in the message is a problem for me. I think that some Republican voters in the era of Trump got used to people just saying things and believing it, because everything Trump said he would do, like you didn't have to worry about it. And Trump said, I'm going to be here on an issue. He was there on an issue. And I think that some Republican voters forget that with politicians, that's not the case. And if you catch somebody in a lie, it's problematic. When they're not a man of their word, it's an issue. When there's a lack of loyalty to other people, you better question whether there'll be a lack of loyalty to the voter. I'm serious, Laura. You heard him, Laura. You heard him. You were right there. And then he sounds like Mike Pence. Oh my God, right? What happened here? Laura, let me tell you guys a story. Laura used to love Mike Pence. Loved him to death. All right? And she called him the Silver Fox. She loved him. All right? She thought he was up and coming. He was the only one, and it was true. For a while, he was the only one loyal to Trump. And a lot of these people would stab him in the back, including Nikki Haley. What's his name? Who used to be the Office of Personnel and Management, or Mick Mulvaney. There were all these people. Forget about the National Security Council. That was filled with a bunch of snakes. But Nikki Haley, Mike Pompeo, even Tom Tillis. Remember him? Not Tom Tillis. Oh, God. What's his name? The first Secretary of State. They all were pretending to be like, yeah, 100%. I'm America first. I got the president's agenda, best interest, as my top priority. And one by one, they would stab him in the back. And Laura loved Mike Pence because I'll tell you what, and it is true. For a while, Pence was like the only one who was not doing that. And then something changed. Then you never really could prove it. And then there were private comments shared. And, there were promises made, private comments made. And he did not make good on those promises. And it started with little stuff like a politician does. They'll tell you they're going to do this, and then they don't. And then there's an excuse for it. And it all sounds like a great excuse. And, you can explain it away. And I remember telling Laura, I know you like him, and she's usually a much better judge of character than me. I'll be honest with you. She is. She's a better judge of character than me. When we meet some of these politicians, we'll say, I'll say, I don't know, I think that guy's a good guy. And she'll say he's a piece of shit. Don't trust him at all. And no matter how polished or serious, or promising these people sounded, they weren't. And she would be right. In this case, there were little things that were happening with Mike Pence. Little things. One of them would be like that tactic of making something up to deny the central claim, or saying and promising behind closed doors, this is the route we're going to take, and then not, and then making an excuse later, flip-flopping and saying, well, no, now I may have said that back then, but I get it now. And then things would happen. This is what this reminds me of. It does. I'm sorry. It's just true. All right. So is there a value in advising right-leaning populist candidates in deep blue districts to run as populist Democrats? Malthus, Barnes and I have talked a lot about this. My contention is that at minimum, it would force expenditures in areas that otherwise would be ignored by the national parties and potentially create the possibility for coalition populist Democrat candidates. My thoughts. I absolutely 110% think there is a value to doing that. For instance, Barnes and I wanted Kennedy to run for governor in California. Okay. There was somebody who I thought would be a good Republican candidate in California, but he was not interested. He was a celebrity. talk about the swing with suburban moms. This guy, I'm not even gonna say who it is, but another great guy though. Actually, I can say it now, right, Laura? I mean, it's over now. I wanted Dean Cain to run for governor. I really did. It's over now. I mean, there's no point of it. There's no point to be quiet. By the way, another great guy. If you're wondering about how some of these people are, like legitimately, Dean Cain is a super, super nice guy. There's a reason why now he acts for Hallmark movies. All right. The guy is legit. He's just a cool dude, really honest guy. Anyway, I thought there were some ways we could, I thought there was a path there for him to explain some of his support for the NRA as a law enforcement officer that he was, and that he could really he has a lot of friends, and that he could try to pull something like that off. When it wasn't going to happen, Barnes and I thought the smartest thing for Republicans to do would be to run somebody like Kennedy. And if they didn't want to, then the hell with them, because the California Republican Party is deeply corrupt. I hate to bring a news flash here. They're corrupt, and they're not conservatives at all. They are snakes. I'm sorry. I'm not making any friends telling you this right now, but it's true. Including people very, very close to Kevin McCarthy. They're snakes. They have no interest in MAGA. They don't care about anything, really, except for getting elected and having power. And they have these arrangements with Democrats to get the crumbs, and that's good enough for them. We thought, to hell with them, run somebody like Kennedy, who's not beholden to either party at the end, and that would be the way to go. And in truth, mount this, I'm 100% on board with what you're saying, because I don't think the Republican Party represents their voters, and I don't think the Republican Party represents anyone who's not a corporatist, right? Because there is an element of Democratic vote that is not represented by Democrats. It's just not as big as the Republican element, so we don't talk about it a lot. But the left-wing progressive activist base is going to leave behind some of these populist Democrats who are non-corporatists. And I do think there's a lane there. And Republicans can't do it unless they kind of cast off. And I'm looking at a question about Paul Ryan next. It's unbelievable. This has to be a break. But until then, why not run those kind of candidates? Because the truth is, I don't think the majority of the American people, where there's common ground on the majority of Americans and what they believe on policy, on culture, I don't think either party does a particularly good job at representing that. One party does a good job on getting their vote in and maximizing it. They have the media behind them. So they look like they're like a majority, but they're not. If you even in blue states, if you simply ask people about their views, they are much more likely to fall in line with Republicans on most of these issues than Democrats. That's just the truth. It's just that Republicans are handicapped in getting that message out. But that's not their fault. That's not in their control at this moment. But what is this stale bread that just keeps being served at the dinner table along with the rest of the food every time it's dinner time? Meaning, I'm obviously using an analogy here for an election. And Paul Ryan is stale bread. Like Mitt Romney is stale bread. You can't continue to serve the moldy, stale bread along with what looks to be appetizing to people and expect for you to have a full dinner table, there are going to be empty chairs because they're going to look at that moldy ass bread over there and say, I don't care how much the antipasto looks delicious. I'm going over to the other table where I'm not going to catch some kind of disease. All right. And this is a way of doing it, which brings me into Derek's question. Paul Ryan talking out of his 24/7 about Donald Trump. Does this help Donald Trump in the long run? It helps him with the base and it helps him with the voters. It does. However, there's going to be this institutional resistance to Donald Trump, and it's going to cause more some of the same friction that we saw in 2016, where Trump was able to consolidate the Republican vote after winning a contentious primary, where he never polled as high as he's polling now. And by the way, that's right. That is what I forgot. But I'm hoping we can get through questions. We can get into it. It's just that one of these articles that I chose to really outline what I'm talking about their ads are horrible, and I was worried about it really becoming a problem. But let's see. Maybe it won't. If it keeps spinning, I'll get rid of it because I don't want it to, interrupt the show. But they did do a good job aggregating where all of these new polls that are coming out stood before and now where they stand now. And it's possible that there's some blowback for DeSantis here. He had some losses with Disney. He has some things come out that are going to come out. So maybe that's helping. But also, the more the establishment attacks Trump, the better he'll do with the base and in a nomination. Bottom line here is Trump now is polling at a position he never reached in 2016. He never reached this high support. He's never been, consistently majority and above, and some, touching into the 6 and 10s. Never. Not until the very end, when it was over, did he enjoy majority support in the Republican Party. Yeah. So Elon says, being in D.C. during the election, certain elements were already blaming Trump. Even when the news was coming out, it was positive for the Republicans early in the night. And I'll tell you, that's why I stopped appearing on a certain show. And not Rav, on another show. They didn't want to hear it, Ian. They didn't want to hear it. Like, I'm sure they're looking at Florida, and I'm like, that's a different case. And I see Jennifer Wexton is in deep trouble in Virginia 10. But why isn't Abigail Spanberger defeated by now? That tells me the working class aren't coming out. Well, they knew where I was going with that, Ian. So they were like, oh, blah, blah, blah. And then I just said, I'm not going back on for the rest of the night. Because they weren't going to want to hear it. Those districts where they didn't do well was because they didn't get enough, as much better as they did with educated voters, they didn't get enough working class to vote. Abigail Spanberger should be defeated right now. Those are perfect examples. She survived and Wexton survived. They did incredibly well with educated voters in those areas. That's why it was even close with Wexton. But it doesn't matter if you don't bring enough working class to the table to put it over the top. By the way, that's what Youngkin did. He did better with educated, but he also got a pretty decent percentage of working class out. That's what pushed the mountain region up to the highest level ever in modern elections as a share of the electorate. 4.1 million votes in the mountain region was 19%. That compares to usually 14 to 16%, roughly maybe 17 if you're lucky. I haven't really looked at the polling for the Chicago mayoral election. If Brandon Johnson gets elected, people would be begging for Lightfoot back. I did read Steve Cortez's column, The Shame About Chicago, the Chicago Tragedy, something like that he wrote, which was great. And so I'm like familiar with, I just think Chicago is it's not like New York. It never really was. Even New York City comes to its senses every once in a while, or it did. Chicago's never shown an ability to do that. Even though, by the way, Chicago is one of the urban areas that we identified where Donald Trump squeezed a hell of a lot of votes out of. And he did it through non-white vote. Non-white. Working class. Hispanic specifically. All right. Deurbanization. You know what? And that is Richa 56. Laura, could you ask Rich to consider deurbanization as a trend? You mean as a topic, right? Absolutely. Sometime between all the other things he's doing. Absolutely. 100%. This is something we need to be talking about more. We do. Because, again, a lot of talk about the burbs. Well, the burbs are being flooded. So is it, how would Mitt Romney do in the burbs now? Would he really do much better? I don't know. I really don't think so. I think it's a load of crap. And in fact, Wisconsin, Georgia, Arizona, I think in North Carolina, Bud did do as well as Trump in the burbs. All of these, we haven't gotten everything yet. We were looking at Republican share of the vote by area from 2016 to 2022. I think you would be stunned, because it's completely not the narrative. If it was totally driven by Donald Trump, then why does Trump do better in the burbs than Republicans do in 18 and 2022 in these key battleground states? How is it possible? Blake Masters, love him to death. Blake is a great guy. He's the first one to lose the burbs in like, I don't know. I don't know how long. I didn't go back that far. The problem for Republicans is that Georgia, Arizona, you're talking about states where the urban vote is over 60% of the vote. Right? So, losing the burbs was devastating for Republicans. That's why David Schweikert almost lost. I mean, he's got baggage. The corruption stuff is sticking because the corruption stuff is bad. David, retire. I don't understand why you people put themselves above the American public. I mean, I know, I understand. I don't want to sound like naive and idealistic. I do understand. I know why they do it. I'm just saying it's disgraceful. Disgraceful. It really is. All right, speaking of which, because there's a lot of questions coming up about it. All right, we know DeSantis is going to Florida. We get that. Let's get rid of that. God, man. John, fix your website. I'd show your articles more, but I can't have this like never-ending circle of loading. Fix your website, brother. All right. Being a prick today to everybody. I know I am, but I'm aggravated with people. This is what I'm talking about, and it's going to cover a couple of the questions that Laura put in there. I'll just read the whole thing. We're at 117. We got time. Written by Madeline Hubbard for Just the News. All right. If you watch Inside the Numbers, you're going to know the headlines before they are published. Okay? At least when it comes to polls and other stuff, but, our niche stuff. New polls show Trump bump, winding lead over DeSantis with GOP voters. I mean, was that not the topic of the shows for the last 2 weeks or more? Like, how many times did we bring this up during the show? Former President Donald Trump is gaining support from Republican voters and widening his lead over potential 2024 candidate Governor Ron DeSantis of Florida, according to 4 new polls. Trump received 55% of the hypothetical 2024 GOP primary vote, more than twice that of DeSantis, who received 25, according to an Emerson College poll released Tuesday. And this is what Jack and I talked about on War Room the other day. The Emerson poll is a little bit different than some of the other polls, including us. What they're showing is a decline for DeSantis and a holding of the guard for Trump. What we and other polls have found is that Trump bumped back up a little bit. DeSantis came down a little bit. It was both. The latest Emerson poll also showed that Trump would beat President Joe Biden, in the 2024 general election, 46-42. DeSantis would lose to Biden by 4. For a while there, it was looking like some polls were showing, but in God's name, it did look like some polls were showing that, sorry about that. That should have been off. I apologize to you guys for that. My bad. I don't know. Somebody local, Laura. Better not be one of these little turds. Second time this week. Anyway, we never had, even in some of the private stuff, which I'm going to try to get permission to release, we never had DeSantis beating Biden. His name recognition, in my opinion, was not high enough. Then again, we were not looking at like highly likely voters, we were looking at a registered voter universe and then a very light applied likely voter screen. All right. Why? Because that's what we do. That's how we've always rolled. We always roll like that. Registered voter universe, and then you know how it goes. We tighten the voter screen as we get closer. I don't think it's possible for me to tell you the electorate that's going to vote right now in 2024. I can give you a likely electorate, and then as we get closer, we know for sure. Or we know with more certainty. Can't say for sure. As close as some of those projections have been over the years. The truth is, the degree of certainty gets closer as we get closer to the election. The model gets more certain, but you don't ever know for sure. All right, so obviously one of the things we've talked about with polling. That's the assumptions the pollster puts into it. But Emerson is alone here in showing that Trump didn't gain. He just kind of held firm while DeSantis fell. They're not alone in this, where at one point they had DeSantis doing almost as strongly, and some of them had them doing even stronger, which I thought was wrong and flawed. But now at this point, between Harris, myself, others, Rasmussen, it's happening with them too now. I talked to them. DeSantis is not performing as well as Biden. And some of this may be as Trump against Biden. And some of this may be to the realization of what I've been trying to tell you folks, which is that without Trump, there aren't this group of voters. And they change their likelihood of voting depending on the candidate. So I think other pollsters now are starting to realize that. All right. Anyway, they'll go into the undecided or I'm not sure if I'm going to vote category, which reduces DeSantis's margin. All right. Or his level of support, not his margin, his level of support. Anyway, so the latest poll shows Trump would beat Biden by 4. DeSantis would lose to Biden by 4. Yahoo News YouGov poll, and it's very early, folks. It is. I'm just telling you the situation right now. The Yahoo News YouGov poll, which was very positive for DeSantis, much more positive than other polling, showed that Trump leads 47-39, a major surge compared to the survey 3 months ago that showed Trump trailing DeSantis. You remember they were one of the few that showed Trump was actually trailing DeSantis, and it was actually not universal. They were one of the few showing that while others were still showing Trump up. Now they have him trailing again. By the way, if you look inside that poll, it is, again, it's Yahoo, which uses YouGov. All right. Trump also surged over Biden in the hypothetical 2024 election. Earlier this month, Biden led Trump in this poll 47-41. Now Trump is ahead 45-43, which is still within the margin of error, but of course, a pretty massive net shift. Echelon Insights, which is a Republican polling firm not particularly friendly to Trump, found in a poll released Sunday that Trump leads DeSantis 46-31, up from Trump's 2-point lead over DeSantis in January. Meanwhile, the Fox poll, which is garbage, has Trump up 43-28. The Emerson poll was conducted February 24th to 25th with 1,060 U.S. voters, 2.9 margin of error. The YouGov poll was just with a day before to 2 days after with 1,516 adults, and it has a 2.7 margin of error. This pisses me off. I'm not going to lie to you folks. This pisses me off. Adults is not the target population for a political survey. Not even a political survey. You can do issues among adults, which we don't really do, but you can. It's defendable. Elections are not decided by adults. The Echelon Insights poll was performed on one day, which bothers me, and it consisted of 413 likely voters. The margin of error was not immediately clear. Well, that's a problem. The Fox poll is under what is called the joint direction of Beacon Research and Shaw and Company Research. 1,006 registered voters, also pretty small sample. The biggest sample is Emerson, or at least I would say the more reliable sample is Emerson. I'm just my personal opinion. But I think even though the Yahoo News is 1,516, it's of U.S. adults. With Fox and Emerson, they're voters, but Fox is just not a good poll, as you guys know. I don't have to explain this to you. DeSantis has not declared his candidacy, but Trump has repeatedly criticized him as Ron DeSanctimonious. I would not have gone that way if I was Donald Trump or if I was advising Donald Trump. I just wouldn't do it. I would just focus on my record. You can attack him on other things, like his foreign policy, lack of foreign policy experience, and his lack of MAGA, his lack of MAGA policies on foreign policy, because he's not MAGA on foreign policy. He hasn't been. You may be able to change your views over time, like J.D. Vance, for instance, changes views over time. Is now more MAGA than anybody. I've actually noticed that MAGA converts are more. Many of them are more. More reliably MAGA than some of the ones who weren't before, because once you're converted, it means you've changed your mind for a reason, and now you believe that. So that could very well be possibly be the case, but it's not now. There's also, and I'm not dropping it yet, but there is also one thing that could damage Ron DeSantis very badly among the primary electorate. You could go after him on things like that. His behavior during COVID. I think that his supporters have done a great job of making him into the anti-Fauci governor. But the fact of the matter is, in the beginning, I mean, he was a cheerleader for the vaccine. He was. Laura worked for that at the time. She was a pregnant woman who was forced to wear masks and forced to work in crowded areas, even though they were talking about social distancing and closing schools. None of the policies made sense in the beginning, and he did them. All right. So the kids couldn't go to school, but a pregnant woman, 8 months pregnant, had to go to school and wear masks and make sure, like, she was in crowded areas feeding kids. Like, it's because of they were liberal, which, by the way, Laura and I supported those programs and still support those programs, but it just didn't make much sense. If you're going to have those children there anyway, why aren't they learning? Because you caved to teachers' unions. That's why. I mean, it just didn't make any sense. There was no logic to it at all. And we know now, by the way, Laura, the diaper they made you wear on your pregnant face didn't do anything, did it? I mean, we know this now. Good.
Actually, it's more harmful to be pregnant and
For
wear
you,
masks,
yeah.
for me personally. So they didn't take that into consideration at all. They just pushed and pushed and pushed.
You know, I gotta I don't know how to say it, but URUSHIOLLT said, and this goes back to the first segment on Rasmussen, the AP smear on Rasmussen. Shouldn't matter if they were all conservative. Like, so it doesn't even matter if they're bipartisan at Rasmussen, because they are. It shouldn't even matter. Are they accurate? That is the only thing that matters. I'm with him or her 100% on that. Everybody has views. We're all human beings. Only thing that matters is whether you're accurate or not. They are also concerned about conservative pollsters because they view polling as a way to influence public opinion instead of a way to measure public opinion. Bravo. I mean, you're 100% correct. All right. Neil, is Trump on the ticket alone good enough? Or do Republicans need a better ground game and embrace mail-in ballots? They need a better ground game, Neil. They need a better ground game. He is an incredibly effective turnout machine. And by the way, he knows that now. I can tell you that for sure. I know that for certainty. He wants his campaign to have a mail chasing operation. He does. Like a nationwide, or at least battleground statewide, ballot chasing operation. He gets it. The former president gets it now. He does. But yes, it does. Any Republican running has got to, they're running out of time. They need to play catch up. And they're running out of time to play catch up. Because I'm going to tell you, Democrats are going to evolve. So what they did in 20 and what they did in 2022 is not going to be the sum total of what they're going to do in 24. So if you're just playing catch up to get to where they were in 20 and 22, you're going to lose. You're going to lose. Unless you could have a turnout monster like Trump that if you don't reach parity yet, but you've put at least basics in place and then Trump gets out all these extra voters, then it could still, offset what Democrats are going to do. But do you want to take that chance? No Republican should. It's just stupid. It's just dumb. Unsubscribe with notifications on, and YouTube completely ghosts the People's Pundit. I know it. We've caught them on it. They'll send me the notification, but somebody I'll ask to look to see won't get it, or won't get it until way later. I know it, and it sucks. It does. That's why I wish this could be. It's just the nature of the show and what we do here. It's hard to get it set like hours before. And then Getter, you can't set it hours before. You have to. That's why I go live like 5 minutes early. I try to go live 5 minutes early, even though the show doesn't start, because Getter doesn't start. It's just Rumble and Getter need to get up to speed on that. You should be able to schedule On Rumble, you can, but you always need a new key. On Getter, you just get the same key, but you can't like schedule it. And each has their own little thing. That's an issue. But that's why I'm going to try to figure out how to get it scheduled a little bit earlier. This way, if you're like Spline Jones over there and you get them late or you don't get them at all, at least you'll have some time, some, some advance notice, or at least we can. At this point, we can. So Blondie asks, do you think Club for Growth is still relevant in choosing a Republican presidential nominee? Well, they're still going to fundraise. They're still going to raise money, and they're still going to put out BS polls. Folks, they just put out a poll before every public poll showed the Trump bump. And Laura will tell you, we were just doing one. And you could clearly see that Trump had like risen from 45 to back to like 56, right? Now I'm just giving you a wink and a nod here. That's where it was in the before and after picture. All right. He was at like 45 when he dipped, and DeSantis was like at 30. That's where I'm just giving you a ballpark of where we were. And then Trump went to like 56 and DeSantis fell to like 20, 21. So that time that's happening, the Club for Growth releases a DeSantis plus. I mean, so they're going to do this stuff. They are. Look what they did to J.D. Vance, trying to get Mandel nominated. They're going to be out there. I just don't know that they're going to be the force, that everyone wants, or, that doesn't want Trump. Everyone like them wants or thinks they will be. I'm not convinced. I'm not. How does one have an insurrection against a legislative body anyway? Norm, amen. Brother, amen. How does one have an unarmed insurrection, Norm? And then you have these schmucks from the Lincoln Project and Adam Kinzinger tweeting, this is an armed insurrection. This was a deadly, deadly insurrection. Nobody died except for one of the people, one of the protesters. My God, again, the officers were not killed by protesters on January 6th. That's a lie. That was fake news. Brian Sitnick died of natural causes. The only one who died of unnatural causes was who? Miss Babbitt, unarmed, murdered by a Capitol Hill police officer who got away with it. Yeah, I say murdered because their own explanation in the review board, their own explanation is not true. He said, I couldn't see her hands. I had no choice. And they said, well, that sounds justified to me. Couldn't see his hands. Now, compare that to Darren Wilson and Michael Brown, by the way. Darren could see his hands. They were trying to get his gun. Ashley Babbitt was trying to steady herself in the window, the broken window. Both her hands were by her side like this, holding each side of the window when he fired on her from a few feet away. If you couldn't see your hands, you shouldn't be on the police force because you're blind. You're a danger to the public if you really couldn't see your hands. So now we know that's not true. We know the story isn't true. We know the justification they used to let him off wasn't true. So that's murder. Somebody, I dare you, argue against it. Go ahead. And the crowd was pushing from behind her. If she was storming through the window, she would have stormed through it. She was being pushed. Right, Laura. I mean, she's former military. You think if she wasn't trying to do something, she would have been able to do it? Or not even be able to do it, but do it like she would have been trying to execute it. But she wasn't. She was trying to balance herself in the window. And there are no unpopular questions here. Well, I mean, I guess there can be among the crowd, but not with me. TDP 30. Probably going to be and you're grabbing them from everywhere, right? Locals, Getter. Okay, it's not just the tube, right? Rumble. TDP 360. Probably going to be an unpopular suggestion. But from a strategic standpoint, it may make sense. What about Kemp for VP? And of course, referring to Brian Kemp, the governor of Georgia. He is actually pretty good on most issues besides the 2020 election, and having him in the ticket could secure Georgia. That, honestly, may be unpopular with some viewers, but strategically for elections, that's not a bad idea. From policy and governing, it might be a bad idea. So once you get there, not having a number two, I mean, you could neuter your number two. Any president could neuter their number two. They could. But then he'll have allies and they'll be trying to sabotage you, but it's not at all a bad suggestion. I'm talking about from an electoral standpoint. Mayfield jukes. Didn't the CIA start while we were paperclipping Nazis into America? Yeah, pretty much. I mean, talking about the time frame. I mean, yeah. I mean, the CIA is gotta go. It's gotta go. I don't know how we have agencies. Take Colombia, for instance. Take Mexico, for instance. Take Afghanistan, for instance. If you consider partnerships with groups or arrangements that allow groups to operate a certain way, as long as you get what you want out of the deal, active participation in those groups' activities, then the CIA is the biggest drug dealer in the world. I'm tired of the CIA's staging crap. Staging the burning of poppy fields in Afghanistan while planting 800 hectares out of the camera's view. I'm tired of allowing operations like stuffing heroin into the coffins of dead soldiers during Vietnam to import heroin. I'm tired of allowing Colombian radical groups to murder innocent people during the drug war in Colombia to get rid of communists, for turning blind eye on cocaine imports into the U.S. or exports in their case, as long as you get FARC, for instance, or using mercenaries to murder peasants to make them look like they were FARC and make them, to make them look like they were drug traffickers while congressmen and senators visit and you try to convince them for more foreign aid. These are things the CIA has actually done. They're not supposed to be able to have their activities on U.S. soil. They break it all the time. A president comes along and says, end your activities in Syria. They don't, and Joe Kent's wife gets killed when she should have been home with Joe and the kids. Because the CIA thinks they're above the law. They think they're above the president. They think they are above you, the voter. They're dirty, man. I just don't think we need them. I really don't. I don't think we need them. I don't think we need the FBI. I don't think we need any of them. If it wasn't for the activities, folks, if it wasn't for the activities of one DEA agent, which went against the wishes of the CIA, which went against the wishes of the ambassador, which went against the wishes of the State Department, hell, they went against the wishes of his own superiors at the DEA. If it wasn't for the actions of him, one guy, the Cali cartel would still be in business today. One guy. And the CIA would continue to be helping the Cali cartel because they did. And there wouldn't even have been a Cali cartel if the CIA didn't help every dirtbag in the world kill Pablo Escobar or weaken him to the point where Pablo Escobar could be tracked down by federales or the, what do they call them? The unit that went after high-value targets in Pablo Escobar's organization. By the time they killed Pablo, he was a shadow of his former self. But I'll tell you what Pablo did do. Keep Mexican cartels in line. Now who's the major problem? The Mexican cartels. Thank you, CIA. Thank you. When we invaded Afghanistan,
there was only 180 metric tons of opium exported from Afghanistan. That's it. Why? Because the Taliban and the Iranians had a friggin' kill zone for the traffickers' main route. And they would sit up there. One side was the Taliban and the Mujahideen, and the other side was the Ayatollah's men. And at the time, it was Ahmadinejad was the president. And they both would sit there and wait. And as the drug traffickers would come by, they would just open fire, boy. Only 180 metric tons before the invasion of Afghanistan. By the time we were closing up shop out there, 10,000 metric tons exported out of Afghanistan. Why? Because the CIA was in the business of exports. That's what they do. And then they burn a couple fields and pretend, come on over here, CNN, come get this. Make sure you get this. See, we have the Wheat for Poppy program. Then they hire guys like me to make sure those fields are okay, or guys like my friends, because I was never too stupid to do it, to make sure that they were guarding the poppy fields. So Mercs, they're over there doing, man, I'm sick of it. Frank Lucas would never have been Frank Lucas if it wasn't for the CIA. I'm sick of it. These are not good guys. None of them are good guys. What are they protecting us from? What Soviet threat did they protect us from during the Cold War? Come on. I mean, I could go on and on, folks. I could go on and on. The CIA has done way more bad than they have ever done good. And don't give me this, oh, it's covert crap. You don't know what they did good. No, we always find out later. We always find out later. They don't, right. I mean, eventually things come to light. By the way, let's get real. Everyone knows it. They killed an American president. Come on. And Mike Pompeo, you should be ashamed of yourself for not allowing those documents to go out. You know what I'm talking about. You do. You do know what I'm talking about. And by the way, this is one thing a hurdle Trump's going to have to get over. He could have overruled Mike Pompeo. And then the country would know right now that, ironically, his biggest enemies, the intelligence community, are also the biggest enemy of the American public. And by the way, there would never have needed to be a drug war if we weren't sticking everything in our veins and our nose that we could get our hands on. The war is at home in our own culture. The war should be waged against the mass mental illness that we are suffering from in this country and have been for decades, especially since the Cultural Revolution in the 1960s. I don't even blame Pablo. I don't. You want to hear something? I don't blame those guys. They're taking advantage of a market. Look at somebody like Pablo Escobar. You know, he really wanted to be elected. Yeah, of course, he was a trafficker before then. A trafficker of a lot of things, not just cocaine. He was trafficking electronics and everything long before because of, sanctions and things that weren't allowed to go. That's what he did. He just got his finally after, oh, by the way, the CIA back to Pinochet. That's right. In Chile, cocaine production and export moved to Colombia after the CIA-backed regime change in Chile led to the wholesale slaughter of anyone who tried to grow anything. And then Cockroach, nicknamed Cockroach. He was basically all that was left. He played dead when the firing squad came. I mean, people, you really should learn this history. It's very important. Truth be told, if Chilean soldiers probably had better aim, maybe they wouldn't have ended up, maybe there wouldn't have been a Pablo Escobar kingpin. But as it turns out, they missed him. They missed Cockroach. He played dead. When it got dark, he crawled out of the mass grave that the CIA-led troops dug for them. Made his way to Colombia, looked for somebody who could export, and Pablo Escobar was the man when it came to trafficking routes. So he partnered with him. Pablo eventually took it from him. But he was poor from Medellin. There's nothing else to do but be a criminal. if you want to make money at that time. There was nothing else to do. Why? Because of an oligarchy supported by the United States. They wanted all the money. They did nothing for the poor people of Medellin. That's why Pablo was so popular for so long, building barrios for people and stuff. They painted him as the Colombian Robin Hood. The Cali cartel, they were all bankers and stuff. That's why the CIA didn't care about them. And the government, who took campaign contributions from them, including the president, never cared about them at first. And actually, in fact, we're going to let them go. They were going to let them dictate the terms of their own surrender and keep all of their businesses. But Pablo, no. He was from dirt poor to nothing, and then wound up having more money than half of these people, more than half, and basically everyone in Colombia. And that couldn't stand because he wasn't one of them. What did he call them? What did Pablo Escobar call those people? The oligarchs. He had a name for them. Does anybody know this? I'll give you a little pop quiz. I'll look at YouTube. Does anybody know what Pablo used to call these people? Come on, guys. Somebody's got to know. Let me look in Rumble. Let me look in Getter. Somebody's got to know. He had a name. We call them the ruling class here, right? We call them, oligarchs. We call them the elites, right? We have names for all these people now. In America, we're dealing with our own like populist struggle. Does anybody know what Pablo used to call them? He had a name for them. I'm going to look one more time. The men of always is what he called them. The men of always. These are men who are always going to be around in society. They're rich. They're powerful. They never want anyone to get anything that they have. They never want you to be able to get ahead. These are like the kings, like Tom Purcell wrote The Return of the Kings, when he wrote The Return of the Kings. Yeah, we have names for them, the bourgeoisie, right, in our own thing. He called them the men of always. Laura, who's to say that if they left him alone after he was elected to Congress, maybe he wouldn't even have been a cocaine trafficker anymore, because Pablo Escobar really did want to help the poor people of Colombia. He had dreams of being president. What's the difference? They ended up with Saint-Pierre anyway, a crook, a criminal. What's the difference? Because he's a man of always. So you could just let him go and let him be a criminal, but not somebody who crawls their way to the top. God forbid. And I'm not just defending. He was a monster, guys. I'm not defending him. He was a murderer. He was a monster. But they made this monster. They made that monster. They made him. They're gatekeepers of wealth and lifestyle. That's right. And the Cali cartel, by the way, was one of them. So they were treated very differently. Not hunted to the ends of the earth. They didn't send. There was the FARC, who were left-wing communists, and then there was right-wing groups led by these two crazy brothers. I can't remember their names, but maybe like Castellanos or something like that. But anyway, they were right-wing. They were nutcase. They killed innocent people all the time. And, it was totally okay. They would later be known, they would call themselves publicly as Los Pebes. Los Pebes. And they were murdering Pablo's people all over the place. That was perfectly okay with the CIA. Even innocent people. Innocent people. So somehow it's all right for them to do that. It's all right for the CIA to import drugs. It's all right for them to make deals with drug dealers, as long as it's in line with what their version of U.S. foreign policy doctrine is for that moment. And during the era of the Soviet Union, it was like anything was okay except for communism. But it's not all right for if the people who are out of the system to do it. It's just bull. It's bull, man. It's total crap. Total crap. That's right. Los Pebes. Right. Total crap. Again, I'm not defending them. I'm just saying there's even a double standard in the world of the powerful monsters. There's even a double standard there. So forget about, the double standard we see here. I just think we don't need these organizations. I just don't see what good they do. If somebody has a counter argument, I'd love to hear it. And this is coming from somebody who said there should never have been a war in Afghanistan. Trust me when I tell you, the CIA was doing a very good job finding and murdering all of the people that may have or would have been or supported what happened on 9/11. There didn't need to be a conventional army in there. Those guys were cowboys in the early stages of that. before the traditional conventional invasion, they were cowboys, man. They were just lighting it up. I don't know how we move forward with these powerful administrative, well, I don't even know what you call them, but these people are above the elected order in this country. They are not subjected to our elections. And that is the real lesson of the Trump administration. You may think you're in charge and you're voting for, and that you're a sovereign representative, right? Or that the president is the representative of the sovereign voter. That's the system we have here in the United States. But I think the lesson of the Trump administration is that that's a lie. That's a hologram. These people don't want your guy. They'll get rid of him in a heartbeat. They'll figure it out. That's what Chuck Schumer meant when he said, the intelligence community will you every way, twice on Sunday. Better not make enemies with them. Like the last president who made it, Trump could be considered to get off easy. He was just defeated by essentially what was a coup. One constant coup after the other. The last president who didn't play ball with them ended up with his brains blown all over the place. On his wife's lap. I don't see the point of him. I'm gonna start to get a lot more vocal about this. I really am. I'm sick of it. I really am sick of it. Anyway, yeah. And then they spend their time not stopping threats. They stop their time trying to figure out how to get politicians under their thumb. That's what they do. And making little shows, making little sideshows. Think about the sideshows they've staged in Ukraine by now. How many of this stuff has been staged by? And good for you, Jack. Vinman is trending right now. Good job, Jack Posobiec. Good job. Good reporting. Both you and Libby. Honestly, you deserve it. The media wouldn't have told you about this. The CIA-loving media would not have told you that Alexander Vinman is like a middleman here and taking your foreign aid. Mr. Impeachment. Great job, Jack. Great job. Anyway, I hope I could have helped any way possible. And look, that's it. This is new here. Oh, no, it's not. Yeah, actually, I'm just looking at a message the guys at Rasmussen actually just sent me. And apparently they're saying this all started with the with their thing with the AP. This all started with the comment about is it okay to be white? And then Scott Adams is stepping in it, over it, which he did on purpose. Scott did that on purpose. Understand, he engineered that controversy. And he made the point that the real price of freedom of speech is much higher than anybody thinks. Freedom of speech is much weaker in this country right now than anybody thinks. And he was willing to pay that price because he has the money to do it. I mean, so good for him. Hold on, I did miss. Let's do this. We'll get to a couple more questions in a hot second here. Let's get to our last one of the day, and then we'll answer a few more. What on earth is going on? Don't worry. Stay with me. Stay with me. Don't worry. It's coming back. Friggin' AP. See? All right. So let's take a look at this. Jam and Bean, as I've told you guys before, promo code TPP at checkout. Get yourself 10% off. The tea is also delicious. It absolutely helped. I think I want another cup of it actually when I'm done on the show, Laura, because that really did help. My throat is starting to hurt because I've been talking for 2 hours, but I don't think I would have even been able to speak without that cup of tea. Coffee, of course, if you're like me, maybe you need K-Pods on the fly. I'm telling you, Jam and Bean is the only one with a real full-bodied, medium roast K-Pod. Or if you're also like me, you love to get whole beans, grind them up, put them through the press, or whichever method you use. Jam and Bean is their roaster is an artist. Their coffee is amazing. There's something for everybody. Check out their gourmet popcorn as well. I'm going to have to get more myself because I can't stand looking at the sour cream and chives behind me. I'm probably going to eat it this weekend. And I know you won't let me, but the dill, Laura, was so good. I need to
The dill was also delicious if you guys like stuff like that. Anyway, check it out. It's Jam and Bean, JAMN, bean.com. And the link is, of course, in the description, just like For Patriots and Field of Greens. I love getting your feedback. All the feedback so far from the coffee has been fantastic. But keep it coming. I would love to hear all about it. And again, jamandbean.com, links on right up right now. Use the promo code TPP10 to get 10% off your order. All right? You yelling at me? What?
He means just promo code TPP. That's it.
Oh, I said 10. TPP, just TPP. And to get 10% off your order. Whoops, sorry about that. Actually, let's see. I wonder, there is, that's what I was just going to say. Coffee subscriptions, you can use that on the subscriptions as well. But where's the popcorn? Let me see if there's something else I want to. I'm going to go do this live right now. Is there something else I haven't tried, Laura, that I want to try? The dill. Oh, my Lord. It's so good.
I wouldn't know because you ate it all before I got home.
I did. I really did. I'm sorry. They were at a dancing competition. They know. They saw me crush half the bag on the damn program. Mocha caramel latte. Ooh. Buffalo blue cheese is one of my favorites, hands down. Cheddar cheese, I don't think I've tried it. I have it though. Tutti Frutti. They also have a lot of other really cool colors for a lot of cool flavors for the holidays. When the Christmas one comes out, boy, you better grab it. Anyway, TPP, promo code TPP. All right, let's get back to some of your questions. All right. Spice, Rich, did you ever fix your tone drain problem with this effect signal? It's the wah. It's the wah, and it is a little bit of the it's a little bit of the smart gate, the MXR smart gate. If I want to deal with the humming and stuff like that, and then you get that tone. It's also I'm less than 15 feet away from my amp. So, if you want to crank it, even on the lower wattage for the Jubilee, that's it. But I did both, the 800 and the Jubilee. It's the wah. The main one is the wah. And I won't use much. There's a few Boss pedals I like, but Jim Dunlop MXR is it for me. It is most definitely the wah. And of course, if you use the Custom Audio Electronics MXR Boost line driver, it gets worse. But the tone, it's not sucking any tone. Once I removed everything, I saw almost nothing from the Phase 90. Maybe this is your experience too, Spice, but the Phase 90 took almost nothing away. The chorus, the analog chorus, almost took nothing away. I couldn't personally hear that much of a difference at all. You put that wah on, coupled with the smart gate, and it sucks tone. I have to crank up the Boost line driver for lead stuff if more than I ever would. I go like a quarter of it. It just adds decibels. I go maybe a quarter normally. But when the smart gate is on, I got to go like 2/3 full. And there is some settings that when you reduce how much the smart gate is taking away, then it doesn't suck as much. But if the wah is on, it's going to suck it out. It's no doubt. It's a shame. I have, and here, maybe I could show you actually. Hold on 1 second. One second. Oh yeah.
I can't take this man anywhere.
Oh yeah. I got these, Spice. Check it out. So this is a true bypass switch. 9 slots. I'm gonna crack her open, and this is supposed to be a true bypass. So that would help immensely, probably off the bat. But then I haven't gotten the resistors yet, but I really love mid. I mean, you probably know that. There's a 57 Les Paul here and a Jubilee. I love mid tones. I have Seymour Duncan pickups. So they tell me if I swap out the resistor that's originally in the Dunlop wah, if I swap it out with a different resistor, which I can't remember which is which, I have it right here actually, then it will help anything else that may be sucking my mid-level tones, right? Did I get rid of this page?
Look at the comment.
Is that working? Is it? Oh, they make a wonderful true bypass line driver that will forever be on my board. Is it the Yeah, I mean the custom audio electronics one, it's technically it's MXR, but it's got to be, because that thing, I don't see any tone suckage at all in that thing. And man, you play something like Salt in the Swing, right? Which I love that song. It's such a weird solo. But you play Salt in the Swing without it, and then pop that on, especially the outro solo. And man, it's so much different. It's so cool. And I'm also, I don't know why, I used to love Randy Rhoads. I still do, of course, but I used to love Randy Rhoads. So I'm just recently picked up some Mr. Crowley, and especially the outro for Mr. Crowley. Man, that MXR adds just beautiful to the scales that Randy Rhoads used to do. It adds just a little bit more. It's gorgeous. My daughter, she was like, slay. She says slay. It was the MXR adding a little bit more sustain. I'm getting better, but the MXR helps. It certainly does. That line driver certainly makes you sound just a little bit more talented than you really are. Right, Laura? Right? But yeah.
Stop it.
It's a perfect pedal. I love that pedal. I used to use the old version and was searching everywhere for the old version, which Sweetwater doesn't have anymore. Nobody had anymore. And then finally I called them and they were like, look, it was both the line driver and the overdrive. And remember that pedal? And it had two stomp buttons where, you could turn one on or have both on at the same time. But I never used the drive. I never used the overdrive because I just used the drive from the JCMs. And they were like, yeah, our new pedal is just the boost. You could have one or both and whatever. So I grabbed that one, and that is just it, man. I love it. Love it. All right. So what else we got here? Yeah, I had a music geek out for a second. Okay. Did Doug and Tudor lose because they were too extreme, or should they run again? That's a really good question. The fact of the matter is neither one of them had the money to compete compared to their Democratic opponents. Doug, especially. Tudor did deal with that extra issue of the abortion question, which was not worded right. It was not good. But the fact of the matter is you just didn't have the money to compete. That's why Michaels, for instance, in Wisconsin was closer. He spent a lot more money. I mean, money matters in politics, folks. It does. I actually think that Tudor was not at all extreme. Doug had some other rough areas that he had to work around, but the very first poll from Doug Mastriano and Josh Shapiro that came out had Doug winning. It was Quinnipiac, if you remember. So Pennsylvania wanted to. It's just when you get $50-something million spent against you and you raise less than $3 million, you're going to get buried. You're not, and people always like to point to the Donald Trump example, but Trump had universal name recognition. He played the media like a fiddle. It's different. It's different. Not everybody's Donald Trump. So no, I don't think so. It's just that Josh Shapiro had the money to make himself look more moderate. It's that simple. He's not moderate at all, but he had the money to make himself look moderate. And that's a shame. Now compare that to Oz, and he had money. It's where it's at. Are we doing any polling on Palestine, Ohio? Is Biden punishing the Trump voter? I think so. I do think that what's her name is right. Who said it? Somebody had just said it. She's a lefty. She ran for office before. She's on MSNBC and CNN all the time. She's African American, and she went nuts. And I was loving it. She was like, "This is the worst of our politics. This is a Trump plus 70, 70% plus area, and they're being punished because they're Trump voters." And absolutely, I totally believe that, without a doubt. Without a doubt. I mean, there's no politicians are evil ass people. I don't know what to say. Most of them are not normal people. I mean, they're not good people. They're power hungry, immoral, disgusting scumbags. I mean, as good as they talk on TV, that's just the way it is. And without a doubt, Joe Biden is leaving those people to flounder because it's not Cuyahoga County. All right. If it was Cuyahoga, maybe it would do something different. Maybe not, because Cuyahoga hasn't been able to carry the state for a while like it used to. Maybe it would just leave Ohio, period. I mean, it's just sad. It's tragic. But no, we haven't done any polling on it. We haven't. Maybe we'll see. Maybe we will. But those are good questions. All good questions. Right. If Trump sent soldiers to the Capitol, without permission, that would equal the insurrection setup. Yeah, I mean, an insurrection would have been armed forces attempting to occupy the Capitol or defeat government, police, state power in some way, shape, or form. I mean, that was a protest. I mean, this is crazy. Was it a protest that got out of hand? Yes, but it was a protest nonetheless. I mean, that's an insurrection because come on, the hell out of here. It's nuts. That's really, it's just crazy to me that they would even phrase it that way. Even crazier that some people would believe it. But Pompeo says there's nothing to see in those documents. That's why he can't release them, because there's nothing there, right? Exactly, Owen. If there was nothing in those documents, then he would have released them. What's in those documents, as people have said, is, and by the way, I tried to get to the Tim Michaels question based on that. Would it be wise for him to run again? I do think that Michaels could run again. He could. But if Rebecca Clayfish did not screw up her campaign, Rebecca Clayfish would be the governor of Wisconsin right now. But because she went with the Paul Ryan crowd and didn't pay attention to the mood of the electorate, pretended to be something she was not. As Don Smith and I said many, many times, he knows Rebecca, he knows her well. She was pretending to be something she was not. She had a record she could have run on. Trump would have loved her. Trump voters would have loved her. That was the most mismanaged campaign of the election season, period. If you're counting primaries and generals, Rebecca Clayfish was the biggest or the worst campaign of the season. No way a previous Democratic president would have let East Palestine out to suffer. Bill Clinton never would have. No way. No way. Not even Obama, because as we went out over last week, look at how much better Obama did in those areas. This is now the corporate Democratic Party, and they don't give a damn. They don't give a damn about the working class at all. Those people, many of those people, voted for Barack Obama not once, but twice. They're just Trump voters now, but they voted for Barack Obama. Go look it up. And don't even just look at last Friday's show. We talked about this. I don't know what day it was last week. So watch all three. Don't forget to share. But we went over this with margins and everything. Let's see what else I may have gotten to, because I tried to take a bunch of your questions all at once, Given that DeSantis has lied at these private dinners and donor events, well, that it is burning his bridges with some people. It is, but he's decided to. I don't care about those people. The real money is with the other people, and that's why he's taken that court. Yes, he's decided. Ooh, any Iowan town or city I should visit to get the Purist Caucus experience? You know what, Hector? Let me put together a list of that, because honestly, there are some, 99 out there. So you have some counties where there are more robust activities. Even the ones that I've personally seen were in urban areas, or urban for Iowa, Des Moines and whatnot. And it was still cool. So, or more urban, but they're all really cool. I mean, it will depend on where you are, how it shakes out. I think I'm going to go to the Iowa State Fair this time when all the candidates go. And, I think I'm going to go there. Yeah, I do. And I think we're also going to rock up to Wisconsin and get some, like I talked with Jack and his wife. We, Laura and
Tanya.
We all get along great. They're good people. Despite what you'll see the media write about them, they're wonderful, welcoming people. And the four of us get along very famously. And that's something we want to do. So it's something we have talked about for years. He's done it separately. I've done it separately, and I'm dying to do it. So Iowa is a great experience. May even bring the kids. I may. We'll see. Because
if they're bringing the kids, I want to bring
I would love for them to see the Iowa State Fair, Laura. I really would. It's no good for you, the food, but it's amazing. And they get some good musical acts too. They do. Yeah. It's great. It really is a great time. I love it. And
Maybe we could get you to perform.
Those Wisconsin cheese curds. Oh my Lord. Loaded. Of course, I'm not supposed to have that stuff, but I love cheese. All right. Wow, it's already 2:10 and I'm basically over, but we'll see which one. And thank you, Pete, for your comments. Jack, he is too. They all are. So with that in mind, I think I got most of them, and I tried to match some together. It is hard. Let me just say this though, because that's a good question I saw before. It is hard to get accurate polling in Ukraine right now. So some of the stuff you'll see out there, absolutely, is like, how do you poll a war-torn country? You can't. All right, you really can't. So don't let them pretend. All right, you may be able to poll urban areas in Kiev, where there's not a whole lot of fighting going on. But that's it. I mean, it's just crazy. What is Trump's electoral college ceiling in 2024 on the presumption he wins the MPV by 3 to 5 votes? 3 to 5 points. I think the electorate, if Trump's on the ballot, will be more Republican, right, than some of these polls show, and they were in 2020. He just didn't do well with MPVs, but there is a very low ceiling for Republicans on that map right now. I do. It is possible you can get, between low threes. It is, but I really think that's the highest, and that would be a running of the table in the Rust Belt, which I don't know if that can be done anymore with Michigan's election laws. I don't know. Between Michigan and Pennsylvania, now you have both that are just like messes. Integrity, Liz, messes. And Wisconsin would be the more rich target for any Republican, but definitely Trump. And then you peel that together with Arizona and Georgia and holding North Carolina, Florida, Iowa, Ohio.
He booted himself somehow, and I don't know how he did it.
Laugh it up. Get out of here, you
operator.
I got these ergonomic mice. Oh my God, I said mouses. I got these ergonomic mouse devices. And on the side of the button, your thumb is back, just back. And yeah, I yeeted myself, Paul. I yeeted myself. My kids say yeet. It's funny. You yeeted yourself, Dad. That's what they would have said. All right. So with that in mind, it's already 2:13. I guess that's a wrap, man. That went by pretty quick. All right, don't forget Sunday, the book club, Tragedy of Great Power Politics, John Mearsheimer, 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. YouTube members, you can also now join. I will put the link up on the YouTube community post page. All right, and I'll try to do it, give you enough time that you get that. But if you're like some of the comments out there and you're not getting those notifications, at 2:30 at the latest. If you want to join, check over the YouTube, People's Pundit YouTube channel, check under the community posts. And if you didn't get it, it will be there. All right. So if you didn't get a notification, don't forget to check it yourself. 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time is when it starts. The YouTube link, the Zoom link and the passcode will be there for members. All right. And locals, of course. All right. So with that in mind, thanks to all the sponsors for supporting us. Thank you to you guys for supporting the sponsors and us. The links are always in the description. Promo codes TPP, promo code TPP10 for 4 Patriots. All right. With that in mind, I'm out. Everyone have a safe weekend, and we will see you hopefully on Sunday, if not on Monday. Thanks for watching, folks. All the best.
How much you wanna bet that I can get you back inside your head? Before the summer ends and spread a little love. Just for a little fun, I'll make you come back to me before the rise of every sun. Baby, it's meant to be, I know you got a man, but he don't understand. You're gonna be a heartbreaker. You're such a love taker.